Hello everyone, welcome to a video I'm doing on something a bit different today. Instead of the 2400 milestone, I am going to be doing some chess 960, as I've already reached 2400. So chess 960 is a variant of chess where it's the same rules as normal, except the starting position is essentially random. All your pawns are on the correct rank, so the pawns don't change, but the position of your king, bishops, knights, and rooks are essentially random. The only rules, I believe, is that the two bishops have to be on different coloured squares, so you can't have two dark squared bishops, two light squared bishops. And I think the king has to be in between the two rooks, so that you can effectively castle. But the weird thing is that if you castle, say, if you're white, let's say, and you castle with your king and the rook that's on your left-hand side, which would be queenside castling, your king and rook will end up in the normal position for queenside castling. So if your king's on b1 and your rook is on a1, and you castle, your king will then be transported to c1 and your rook will be transported to d1, as in the regular position. So sometimes you have to be very, very careful when you are castling, so you may go into an attack. The benefits of this sort of style of play, or this variant, is that you essentially kind of cancel out opening theory. I know that there are some people who have tried to learn the various kind of best strategies for some of the positions, but I believe there are several hundred positions that will occur. Oh, and another rule I forgot to mention is that whichever random position one side has, your opponent will have the same symmetrical position, so it won't be lopsided. So here, for example, our bishops, rooks, knights, and kings and queens are all in the same place. Right, so I'm going to play g4 at move 1. This will improve my queen, rook, and bishop all at once. Yeah, but my bishops are on different colours, and my rooks are in between. My king's in between the two rooks. They've done e5, controlling the centre. I should improve my worst piece, I suspect, or I play b4. Don't really want to play b4. I'll move my knight out, and my knight is now useful. They're doing the same thing. So d3. I need to get the bishop rolling. Best way of doing that is to get it out. Now, bishop g2 is definitely a move. Bishop check is also potentially an option. Knight f3 is another move. I'm going to try something a bit strange here. I'm going to go f4. So if they take me, I'll take with the bishop. And my plan is already to castle on the queen side, with king on c1, rook on d1. Castling king side would just be wrecking my position. And if they don't take me, I can play things like knight f3 to pressurize the e5 pawn. They have taken me. Okay, wonderful. This means bishop takes. I've activated a piece. Bishop d6. All right. So if they if I take them, they'll take back with the knight, which will improve their pieces. So what I'll do is I'll improve my own pieces. Queen f3. Free move capturing. I've set the time limit for 10 minutes each. No increment. This should give us a fair amount of time to analyse the positions, but not enough that it will be boring. This is just light-hearted, and because I don't really care about my my rating for this, I can pretty much do whatever I like and play a bit riskier than normal. So queen f6 would be a boring move. It might be best for me to trade queens, but that doesn't really suit my style. Maybe I'd go like queen d2 or something, or queen g3 maybe, to preserve the queens on the board, keep tension. Both our light squared bishops are not entirely happy with what's going on right now. I think my placement of the bishop is relatively obvious. I think I need to put it on g2. There is a chance I could put it on h3 instead. If I want to go g5 and try to control that diagonal instead of the g2 to c6 diagonal. Okay. So they're giving away their f pawn, but they might have rook f8 at the end. Alright, well, no, I don't need to castle. Why should I castle right now? There's no requirement. Knight f3. What's the old saying? Knights before bishops. Bishop g2 I'm sure is good, but knight f3 will control more squares, I think. The dark squares are now under my control. And as predicted, queen f6 may happen. So I could go queen g5 to essentially make them capture me first, and then I can take the knight to go to f7. Just don't really like trading queens, but perhaps it is the best option for me. Situation is similar on points. Nothing really has broken the tie. But I'm better developed, so I don't really want to trade. Alright, queen g3 looks very safe. None of my pieces are hanging right now. So I think I can get away with this retreat. Because I played knight f3, perhaps bishop h3 is not as kind of unnatural as it first looks. Play g5 to hit the queen, gaining a tempo, and then play bishop h3. If they take my bishop on h3, I take with the queen and I hit h7, so I gain more time on them. Also, what black has to choose how to castle, as well as me, because neither one of us have moved our rooks yet, and black can't castle at all because there are pieces in between their king and rooks. I could castle queenside, or I could play bishop h3 and castle kingside, where the king goes to g1, rook to f1, which would give me the open file for my rook. So there is some argument to be made, but it does just look a bit strange. Alright, queen to e7. This move I don't really understand. Queen e7. Is knight f6 their idea? I mean, maybe it's the idea. Queen to e3 is an option. Alright, so I'm going to castle here, so king touches the rook. This will just make sure that I don't blunder and delay castling long enough that they can prevent it entirely. And I'm going to potentially go e4 in the next move or so. Perhaps I should have done it straight away, but I just wanted to make sure that I could use this idea. So I'm going to go e4. When they take me, I take back with a check. Discover check. So, yeah, maybe I should have taken it straight away. Sorry, I should have done it straight away, and then when they take me, I take them back. And if they did queen takes, I could get the check. Alright, so now knight d6. They could castle on the king side. e4, pawn takes, queen takes. And then maybe bishop d3 might be a move, but it does feel a bit wrong. Alright, well I'll do it anyway because it does open up lots of lines for my pieces. That pawn on e2 just looks really bizarre, sitting there not doing lots. I need to gain some space with my central pawns. Yeah, it's a temporary pawn sack. Queen takes is certainly an option. Now, the slightly annoying thing is I can't do rook takes knight check, pawn takes, queen takes, and then when they play knight d7, they stop me winning the rook. However, I may be able to do bishop b5. This stops them castling, because they'd be castling through check, I think, anyway. I'm not quite sure about the rules here, which I should know better, but I honestly don't know. Right, so now I have rook takes knight, pawn takes, queen takes. So I'll have fully given up the exchange. What then? Then their rook's attacked. Castling queenside would actually be a move. So, yeah, maybe they can do that. Yeah, it just looks good for me. Maybe I shouldn't do this, but alright. The other option, which I can't believe I didn't see earlier, is simply attack their queen. Where are they going? What's the placement of the pieces? Queen takes g4 would be the answer, I suppose. Queen g4 is a move. So maybe I take the bishop first. They do knight takes. Then rook to e1. Their queen goes to... maybe b4? And then... I don't know, maybe I can do something useful. Maybe I can do like queen h4 check. Or something, and that would make them go king c8. So they wouldn't have casting rights. Alright, well I'm actually gonna do a third move. Knight g5. So this hits the queen. Knight takes on f7 is definitely a move, it's a possibility here. I've just got that rook lined up with their kings. There's all sorts of kind of sacrifices and other tactical shots that I can do on their king before they end up getting a castling move going. So it's very dangerous for black. Maybe I am missing something here. Maybe there's a way for black to just completely kill all my counterplay. But I think it's worth a pawn for me to do all this stuff. So where will they go? I don't think they can ignore me either. I think they have to move the queen somewhere. There doesn't seem to be a move which gives them counterplay, or there's some sort of forcing move that I'm missing. They've done queen takes g4. What am I missing here? I don't understand it. I take the queen, they take me with the bishop, then I just take back with the rook, no? They can't take my bishop with the knight because they're pinned. Maybe that's what they missed. They're castled, okay. So there's no reason for me to do anything like rash, just put the bishop somewhere safe. I've got the piece for what, 2 pawns? Yeah, because I gave away a pawn on e4, and then I lost the g4 pawn to win the piece. There is rook to d4, which is, yeah, it's a candidate move. Rook d4 centralizes the rook. It now does put my rooks on the open file. They're connected now. Maybe I actually go bishop f1 to h3 check. Just connect the rooks that way. Though it doesn't really improve the bishop that much. Knight c5 looks appealing to me. Just pressurizes lots of light squares. Maybe the knight and bishop can team up as well with bishop e4 or something going to b7. Or just the 2 knights can go to e4 and trade off the pair of knights to make my conversion of the ending easier. Alright, so rook to e8. So knight c5, rook e5 is a bit annoying. Alright, bishop f1 is a move. Knight to e4 might be the easiest move, actually. Knight to e4. Then knight takes, rook takes is good enough. trading a lot of stuff, but if not, I can always do rook takes d8 check. If rook takes, I take on e4, and if king takes, I take on e4, discover check. So we're now, as the game goes on in Chess 960, it will start to look more and more like an actual game. So we're nearly at the point where this could meet up. Like if they're on two paths, that you start in a regular chess game you might start your path on the main road, on a highway or a motorway, whatever you call it, and you're going straight forwards, and you're going to reach the end of the road, or maybe a turn off, reach your house or something, and that's the end of the story. So that's like the beginning of a chess game and the end of it. But Chess 960 in my head is a bit like you're starting on like a dirt road, 10 miles or kilometers away from the motorway or the highway. So you have to take these really rarely trodden paths to finally meet up with the main road, and then you're back to sort of knowing where you're going, and you're on an easy path to your house, to the end of the game, to the comfort zone. So rook takes rook does seem to trade off an extra piece. So rook takes, yeah. Bishop takes knight. I really want them to do rook takes rook. Oh, they did do it. Fantastic. They have 2 pawns for the piece, so I can't be completely lax. The good news is that my sort of extra piece should be enough to win the game. Knight d7, okay. King e2. Get my king active. Knight to e4. Alright, domination maybe. Bishop f3. Trouble is they have g5, g4, but they're not doing it. So, alright, knight d4. So I've activated my minor pieces. Now it's time for me to get the king in the game. h4 is an idea, actually. Maybe I should do h4. It's a pawn move, but it prevents black gaining lots of space with g5 and g4. Ooh, then do I trade? I will say yes. King e3, so I can go king f4. Ooh, knight takes, pawn takes, h5, e6, h6, f6, and they make it in time. So, right, king over here. Very, very simple move. So where do I want the knight? That's the key question. Where do I want the knight? Right, well, b5. I don't like it on b5. I like it on e2. It has a lot more flexibility here. Okay, so the good news is that I can play pawn c4 and just totally lock them up. But I'm going to go knight g3. The reason is that... oh no, it doesn't work. Okay, that's bad. I thought I could do... Oh no, I can do it anyway. Never mind. It's fine. It's fine. So what I'm planning to do is try and make them play king d5, which they're not playing, because they're a good player. Right, fine, they're not doing king d5 then, so h5. This will trade off one of my only pawns left. I'm banking on the fact that my knight can just quickly come round and take all their pawns. Ooh, I didn't see that move. Okay, we'll capture them, make life easy for myself. Knight takes f5. Okay, and it resigned. Okay, wonderful. Alright, I'll very, very quickly look through the analysis board. I want to get more games in, though, so I'm not going to be spending very long analysing the match. I was mostly thinking in the ending that maybe they could have done moves like c4 and tried to push their pawns even further. Ideally, they could attempt to trade off 1 or 2 sets of pawns, so that I may end up with just 1 pawn and a knight against like 3 pawns. And I'd need to play it extremely carefully to preserve my last pawn get rid of their ones, or sacrifice my knight for them, reach a winning king and pawn ending. Right, so let's see. What was the like centre pawn loss, etc. Mine was quite bad, 62, 3 blunders in the game, and theirs was 79. They made more blunders than me, but I played very badly in that match. Alright, so g4 is already bad. That's my inaccuracy. Or at least that's not good for white. So the first few moves, there's not really much to talk about. Bishop d6 is a bit inaccurate, but nothing really there. So queen g3 is a mistake. I should just take the queens off. Looked a bit boring to me. Yeah, queen takes e4 looked really bad. I think they should have castled on the king's side, just like the computer is prescribing. And bishop b5 is a mistake. I should go knight to e5. Now that it's being shown, I can see that not only am I attacking f7, but I'm also potentially shutting in the queen, so I could maybe trap it with moves like bishop g2 or rook to e1 in the future. So that's what I missed. It's still good for me though, still better for white. And knight g5 is just a huge blunder. What's the best move here? Queen e7. So I guess what that does is it attacks my knight and my bishop on b5. And if I move the bishop, they can take the knight with check and then follow up. Yeah, I just blundered the piece essentially. And then I should have taken on f7 before I traded queens. That was my mistake to do that. Yeah, my ending technique was not so good. Knight e4 is probably an error. But the computer analysis is basically saying +2 the entire way the rest of the game. I'm not very unhappy with that. +2 is fine. It's slowly going up as the game continues. So now it's +3. As long as I didn't make some huge blunder, it's fine. So knight e2, king e6. Yeah, knight g3 is a slight mistake. I should do king to g5, although it's still +4, which is sufficient, I think, to win. And h5 is surprisingly good, even though it's giving up a pawn. I say giving up, even though it's trading a pawn. It makes things a lot simpler for me to win the pawns on the king's side and run over to the queen's side. Alright, cool. So that was the first game. See if I can arrange a second game to play. Right, it's 10 minutes flat. Variant chess 960. And I don't really care which colour I am. White or black doesn't really matter to me so much. Rating of... Okay, 1839 is not dreadful. It's higher than average. You start at 1500 on this site. I think across the board for every elo that you have is sort of the default is 1500, and then your first like 10-20 games there's a massive swing of 200 points for each win, or the first few wins is like 200 points either side depending on how strong the opponent is, and it slowly starts to kind of settle down after about 30 or so games. Then it's sort of +10 at most usually for each win or loss. There are other variants on this site. So there's Atomic Chess, which is essentially whenever you capture a piece, all the pieces on both sides that are adjacent to that square that something was captured, they also get removed from the board, including the piece that's doing the capture. So if you play e4, except for pawns can be taken, but they don't get removed from the board if something next to them is taken. So if you were to play the moves e4, e5, bishop c4, knight f6, then white would win with the move bishop takes f7 check, because the bishop has just captured the pawn on f7, which means all the surrounding things that aren't pawns get removed. So the white bishop that's just captured the pawn would get taken off. The black knight on f6 would get removed as well. The f8 bishop would get removed, and the black king would remove itself from the game. Once the black king has been removed, it's game over. So essentially, you don't need to protect any pieces in this style of chess. So checkmates can be done with just one piece, like a queen. Because the moment the king were to capture a queen, the king would also have to leave the board. That's atomic chess. There's Crazy House, which is essentially whenever you take a piece, that piece then goes over to your team, and you can then, in some future turn, instead of moving one of your pieces already on the board, in lieu of that, you can put the piece that has turned traitor back onto an empty square. It's now fighting for your team. So you could have, say, 4 bishops on your side. You've got the 2 you start with, and you've taken both of your opponent's bishops, and later you put them each on the board. And you can even put pieces down on the board, so it's checkmate. So it's a lot of tactics and ridiculous kind of back and forth action, where the initiative is worth an awful lot. Other games are, I think there's Racing Kings, which is essentially you're both trying to get your kings to the other side of the board, and you're not allowed to put somebody in check, but you can't put your king into check, if that makes sense. And yeah, first person to reach the other side of the board wins in Racing Kings. So your team has to kind of shield your king as you walk up, and also block the opponent's king. King of the Hill is a very easy game. That's when you have to get your king legally to go to one of the 4 central squares, e4, e5, d4, d5. You can also win the normal way by checkmating, but you also win if your king has reached one of those squares. But again, you can't put your king in check. And in this game, there's no restriction. You can check or checkmate your opponent at will. So it's inadvisable to just immediately start running your king up, because your opponent will develop pieces and prevent you putting the king in the center. Oh, and there's Horde chess, Horde, and that's when I think there's something like 30 pawns fighting against black, which has a full setup pieces in the starting position. The full army, and essentially white, having only 30 pawns, they don't lose by checkmate, they lose when all their pieces are taken, and they have to essentially checkmate black by pushing one of their many pawns to the end and making a queen. I think the pawns are basically arranged so that there's the first, second, third, and fourth rank are all filled with white pawns. So there's more than 30 pawns then. And I think there's 4 pawns on the 5th rank on B, C, F, and G. So that would make 36 pawns. Alright, so this position I'm white again. I will try playing the English opening. Well, not really, but I'll try playing C4. This allows the B1 bishop to move out. They've done f5, so we're playing a weird sort of, almost like a Polish opening, I guess. Alright, why not? I'll be game. I'll take them. They'll take me, I assume. Then I will play knight to e3. And yeah, so weirdly enough, in this rule set, even though there's nothing in between my king and my rook on e1, which would represent castle and king side, and neither of them have moved, which fulfill the requirement to castle, I'm not actually allowed to, because my king has to go to g1 to castle king side, and my bishop is currently using that square. So I actually can't castle right now. But I could castle on the queen side, because my king would go to c1, rook to d1. But I don't want to castle because I've lost the c-pawn, lost the protection of the pawn. Now knight to e3 is a candidate move. And I think I may... knight to d6, I mean, is a candidate move. And I may give up the bishop pair just to quickly, try and fight over here. But they're not letting me do that. Bishop e4. Yeah, c6 stopping b7 getting taken. Right, so I'm going to play h3, which is a very, very bizarre looking idea. My plan is essentially to play bishop to h2. Bishop f3, so I've got a very, very protected king side. Now I am aware of e4, but I may be able to play it anyway. Could do it anyway, but I'll go knight c5 just to try and do something interesting. Yeah, okay, they're not letting me do knight takes b7. Alright, bishop h2 is, I mean, it's not going to win anything. I may even lose my bishop actually because of e4 then h5. But the benefit to this is that they're opening up their king quite a lot. And they can't really castle right now. So bishop g4. I'm fully prepared for h5, winning the bishop. And if queen takes b2, which I'm also expecting as a move, I can now castle, and I've connected rooks. So I'm not really losing the rook. I'm still losing a pawn or so. Again, I'm trying to go for quick development. Right, b6. Okay, and trade some pieces. It's a bit counterintuitive when you're behind to trade pieces, but I do have some plans. And then rook c1. Essentially c6 is the target. It's the key area. So now queen h2, shuffling my queen out of this horrible area. I'm hoping for rook e5. Not sure if hoping is the right word, but I'm anticipating that move. No, I missed, silly me, I missed the move knight c4 check last turn, then pawn takes, and then rook d1, pinning the queen. But I have to make do with what I have. Let's see, bishop, queen to c7, check, king f6, and I don't see how I'm preventing the king running to g7. It's too good. So I have to do rook takes c6 to prevent that. Try and box the king in to the centre of the board. Then I've got queen d6 mate, which is a very, very severe threat. Knight to e6 has been played, which does get the king out of danger, has to be said. Or at least it appears to. So queen d6, king over. Now, it must be winning, it must be. Queen d6, king moves, knight d5, check. Alright, now where next? Queen e5, that's a simple move, I think. This will win the piece on e6. Rook takes is a move. Knight to f6 is also candidate. Yeah, let's go knight f6. Could I even do knight takes h7? I don't know. Knight h7, king e7. I don't see the mate because rook c7. They go king d8, and I'm not quite sure I have enough. I'm close though. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna stop all this fancy moves. Just play simple. I won the exchange. Now I want a piece, so I'm essentially winning a rook out of that trade-off. And here, do I have a winning line? Queen f6, bishop f7. I don't see it. Maybe there's something, but I don't see what the move is. I'll play more obvious. Win the rook. My king is unbelievably safe. Then rook c1, so I can go rook to c8 at the end. I'll see if the opponent wants a rematch. But no, they quit before I even managed to send a request. That game was a lot shorter, 26 moves. And that one, I'm sure I did something wrong at the beginning of the game. I'm sure that my arrangement of pieces was not very good. But as the path got clearer, and I fought my way through the undergrowth to the sort of dirt road, which leads to the highway, I kind of saw that the king being weak in the centre, and then me having targets to aim for, with their pieces being uncoordinated, is quite similar to certain master games where players will forget to castle and get slaughtered. So I made one huge blunder somewhere. I assume it's at the point where there's the first white spike just before the blue line that says middle game. So I was ahead briefly, and then I threw it away, probably in one move, and then I had to play on a little bit before continuing. But a 45 centre pawn loss in this kind of game is not terrible. 4 mistakes, or 2 mistakes, 4 blunders. 2 mistakes, 2 blunders, making 4 errors overall. So see, I like that. C4 is a mistake on move 1. Just instantly giving me a bad setup. Alright, so we do this, knight e3, bishop f7. Still seems to give black the edge because I've opened up my king. g6, bishop e4 is a mistake. I thought bishop h3 might be better, but I wanted the tempo on b7, which doesn't do much. h3 blunder, I guess because it allows this like d5 and black to get quick central control. On the plus side, it does open up their king in the future for the game. Knight c5, -2, d6. Bishop h2, e4. Bishop g4. Yeah, it's hovering about -2. I'm just quite a bit worse. But queen takes b2 is a mistake because of the fact that it doesn't really improve their pieces apart from the queen. And my castling is essentially a draw. Must be some sort of repetition here. And b6 is a pawn move. It's not really improving black's pieces. And I should apparently go knight to a6 to get the bishop pair, I assume. But I decided to do the inferior line of capturing on d6 twice and then playing rook c1. Yeah, and I just completely they blundered and I totally missed it. I only saw it after I did the check. Knight c4, just a simple move to win the queen. Although on the other hand, they would get a knight and a rook for the queen, and they've already won a pawn. So material-wise, it's not that bad for black. And queen h2 may even be the best move, which I'm struggling to believe. And yeah, rook takes c6 to threaten all sorts of things. And the evaluation a couple of moves ago was -1, and it suddenly skyrocketed to about +13. I trust my sort of killer instinct, as it were, in these types of positions. There's just no counterplay for black. They're bad coordination. They've connected the rooks, that's like the one thing they have. But their king's never really been able to find a safety, sort of safe haven. And I cash in, winning the material, so it's over. And then of course queen e2 just sort of finishes the game because of rook c1, which will be mating in a few moves. Alright, maybe I can do one more match. So there is the symbol for this type of game looks like a set of dominoes. And there is somebody out there who wants a 1-minute game, which is too quick for me. 6-minute atomic chess at the bottom of the screen, and 5-minute, I think that's Racing Kings when it has that flag. But it might be King of the Hill when you have to get the king into the centre, as opposed to as opposed to the other side. Oh, and the upside down king is what they call anti-chess, which is sometimes called losing chess. Essentially, the rules are that kings can get taken just like anything else, and you win the game by actually forcing your opponent to get rid of and capture all your pieces. So the rule is that whenever you can take a black piece, or as an enemy piece, if you're white, whenever you can take a piece, you must take it. And if you have more than one capture, you can choose which one to capture. So you get really bizarre games where both sides are throwing away pieces, and then they're both taking lots of pieces with something on the other side of the board. So for example, after the move e4 for white, black could play b5, force white to capture the b5 pawn with their bishop, and then play something like pawn a5, forcing white to capture d7 with their bishop, and then black would be forced to capture the white bishop with something. Their king, their bishop, their knight, their queen. And I believe if it's stalemate, the side who can't move wins the game, and pins are no longer in the game because kings can get taken just like anything else. So there's no absolute pins or other stuff like moving into check, for example. There's no concept of that in this game. Essentially, it teaches people to see ahead in tactics. It's quite a good tactics trainer, essentially. And I don't seem to be very popular right now. No one really wants a game of Chess 960. As I say that, I guess a game. So I'm playing someone 1600, which I have no idea what that means in this context. So I'll actually play d6. I don't really like symmetrical lines, even in this game. Alright, c5. Now, I'm very aware that if they take me, I cannot recapture, because I'd lose the queen, which would be somewhat bad. But I'm going for an initiative here. So if pawn takes c5, I'll play knight g to f6, which is being done. Knight g f6. And if pawn takes, I might do knight takes. Which way do I take? Yeah, let's take with the knight. So my queen is still vulnerable. So castling kingside may be the right plan here. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Castle kingside. There we go. I've almost got a respectable position right now. Apart from the fact I'm one pawn down. So this is almost looking like a real game, except for the fact that the bishop on d6 could never be there in a real match, because e7 and g7 pawns are both on their starting squares. So the bishop on f8 would have no way of reaching d6. Chess logic. But other than that, it's fine. And I'm hoping they castle kingside right now, because bishop takes h2 is a well-known well-known trick to do a discovered attack on their queen. I have a feeling they will not fall for this. They play h3, which is fine by me. Play bishop to h5. If they go g4, then that's also okay. I'll just play bishop g6. There's no reason for me to sack the piece. It just feels wrong to sack, especially when it opens up white's rook on h1. So this position, more than the others so far, has actually been kind of almost normal. Alright, and they've done this. And I'm put in a dilemma right now, so if they take me, which I think they'll do, I never know which way to take. I suspect taking with the h pawn is correct, because that just feels right. But I am going to take with the f pawn this time, only because I'm still one pawn down. I need to make the game dynamic, and opening the f file would definitely qualify as being dynamic. Now the bishop has moved onto the bishop's been removed from the board from b1 to g6. That means their queen is now guarded, so I no longer have any bishop h2 checks or other seemingly useful tactics. I have to rely on my initiative. Queen b3 is a move which does look interesting to play. and the idea might be to go knight g5 at the end. So I'll need to be a little careful of this. Okay. So e5. Try and play e4. Try and gain initiative somehow. Does prevent their knight c2 move does prevent them playing queen b3, so I didn't need to analyze that move anymore. And clearly queen d5 would drop a piece. And if they play g5, I might go e4, which they haven't done. Knight e4 looks interesting, but I do drop the knight to queen d5 check. King h8's a move. Rook c8's possible. Knight c7. I just don't like my queen being on the same line as theirs. I'll play e4 anyway, just to see what happens. Knight g5 is what I'm fully expecting, or queen b3 first, then knight g5. And okay, or knight d4 then. Going to e6 clearly. Queen e7. I'm lined up with the king. I've got something here. Queen b3 followed by queenside castling might be the right plan for the white side. But I think, I think my initiative is small, but it is there. So I can do things like bishop f4 and double up their pawns, where they'll be doubled and isolated, so they'll be a lot weaker than my doubled f pawns. Yeah, queen b3. I can't really afford to trade queens right now. Queen e6 is an interesting plan. Maybe I play queen c7. Oh no, knight b5. Queen d8 is looking very kind of unnatural, but maybe that's the best plan. What else could they do? There's rook d1. It's definitely an option for them to play. And I'm looking at stuff like knight g4 and bishop g3 and other ridiculous looking tactics. Knight d5. Their plan is to trade. This is fine by me. I will trade off the knight, only because I get their f2 square. Rook takes f2 looks fascinating as a move. Then queen h4, king g2 doesn't work. Very, very close to having something here. In fact, I'm going to play this move. What I'm hoping for, well, I say hoping, what I plan is for them to play f3, which at first is looking okay because it prevents me doing rook takes f2 check. If they castle queenside, I can take on f2, and then I've definitely got compensation for the material because I've got a monstrous pawn on f2. But after pawn f3, I have queen h4, which threatens checkmate on f2, and I think they'll have to castle on the king side to prevent it, which will then give me queen g3, queen h2 mate. Rook h2 would then drop the rook to the bishop on d6. f3, alright, and this looks like it may be the end of the game, unless I've missed something. The big question is, can they castle on the queen side? I would say not, because they're castling through check on e1, but again, the rules of chess 960 are slightly unusual, so I don't know if it means that they only need to go through d1 and c1 when they castle queenside, as in normal chess, and those squares are not covered, so they are technically able to castle through check. But if I was making the rules, I would say it's not allowed, and they've castled. And they have not castled, they've resigned. So I'll end the video in a moment. Let's just see the evaluation. Each game is getting quicker and quicker. It's only 17 moves for this one. So yeah, again, I think even though Chess 960 is a perfectly interesting game, because people don't know the openings, they're a lot more susceptible to, sacrificial attacks or just, not quite knowing how to play the positions without initiative. This is why I do have the theory that the kind of the Romantic era of chess, which is sort of late 1800s, with sort of personified by people like Paul Morphy. Part of the reason he would win games so quickly is that his opponents would have no idea how to play the opening, and therefore they were very susceptible to this. So if Paul Morphy were to be teleported to today, he might be a very, very strong chess 960 player, because it certainly seems to suit his style. Alright, so they made their centre pawn average, centre pawn loss is 100. Mine's 37, which is not great, but it's kind of acceptable, I guess. Generally, I perform sort of 30 or under, but as it's chess 960 and there's no openings to guide me. Yeah, so inaccuracy on move 1. So it seems that it's chess 960, because some of the openings and the pieces are arranged differently and sometimes a lot more they're a lot better placed than they would be already. They're ideally placed at the start of the game. For example, the bishop on b1 is essentially almost fianchettoed. The moves you have to play are more precise than in regular chess. So there's a lot of sort of dubious openings like the Budapest or the Alekhine or Scandinavian, you name it, which are playable just about if you know exactly what to do. But here, because I don't know what to do, I need to play the openings a lot better. It seems every time I play, I seem to be a bit worse at the opening, but then make up for it with active pieces. So yeah, I thought e4 was a lot more active because it threatens e5. So bishop to f4, castles, and yeah, bishop takes d6. You have to ask yourself, who is getting the improvement from this trade? White's active bishop being removed, and my inactive bishop on b8 being promoted, being placed into the centre of the board. It seems to be black who's benefiting from that trade, so I don't know why white would do this. Also, it releases tension. It gives me a tempo. Now white's behind in development, which if they weren't already after I castled. So knight f3 is level, or near enough. My bishop g4 was a little inaccurate because it has given white as being sort of +1. And f takes, yeah, f takes is definitely wrong because of the diagonal to my king being usurped by their queen. But yeah, this knight c2 is rubbish. Queen b3 looked a lot better, followed by knight g5. Yeah, +2. I probably had to give the exchange or some other major concession or so. So knight e3 essentially is giving me a playable position, and I throw it straight back at them and give them essentially a winning setup. Yeah, bishop c5 is stronger, but I didn't want the trade of queens when I'm a bit worse. So knight d4 is just bad. Sorry, knight d4 is bad for me. It's good for them. Queen e7, yeah, queen b3 check, king h8. Yeah, this knight d5 just looked really suspicious because of the fact their king was getting opened like that. So the computer recommendation is something I would also be thinking of, which is castling. Just making sure they're very, very safe. And it goes from +2 to -1.4. So it's essentially almost like it's losing a minor piece straight away, which I suspect it is because maybe their best move here might be castling. But no, queen takes. e3, yeah, -1. And then f3 is just mating. So queen e6 is correct. And then I probably should play like rook takes f2 check, followed by something like maybe queen e1. And their king will be able to run to say d1 and c2 and find a safe haven, but I've got initiative. Yeah, an f3, terrible blunder. Queen h4, mate in 5 or 6. So the mate is, oh okay, it's rook h2 where I take them. Yeah, everything else appears to be mating. So rook h2, bishop takes h2 is essentially forced. Oh, okay. Computer doing what it does best, just delaying mate as long as possible. King takes. Oh, okay. King g2, and I'm guessing the idea is queen f2, bishop g3, so that I mate them on h2 without any problems at all. And then a weird thing about computers is that something I figured out, or at least I noticed, but I'm sure someone else has figured it out before me. If there are two moves that are equally good, or they do the same thing, like they both checkmate in one, the computer will often sort them alphabetically. So that would mean that a knight move would be preferable to a queen move, because a capital N is alphabetically in order as opposed to a capital Q. So that's why white's move is suggested as A3, because it's best in the alphabet. An A4 would be not quite as close, and rook on A1 would, it starts with a capital R, so it won't be a rook move. And after that it would be B and then C and so on. So it's just funny that the computer suggests A3 when there's, I don't even know how many legal moves, probably about, I don't know, 15, 20 legal moves right now. It's just the one that's in alphabetical order. I mean, if I was doing this, I just have fun with rook f1, just to give black two different mates, queen takes f1 and queen h2. But that's less interesting. All right, so I hope you like this video. It was a lot more casual than my previous ones, which were rated, classical games. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.